Hello and welcome to another episode of Releasing Your Inner Dragon. Today, we're going to have a fun conversation about how the collaboration process has been going on Magicfall, the novel we're writing together, and kind of things that have come up during the world building and during the writing process and so on. So we're going to go into detail of like adjustments that we've made and why and things that have been going on and how to work with somebody if you're collaborating. With me to have that discussion, as always, is my co-host, Drake.
Hey, I'm Max Alexander Drake, award-winning novelist, teach writing all over the world, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm. And I, of course, am Marie Mullaney. I have a YouTube channel. You can see we're like on the ball tonight, man.
Yes.
I have a YouTube channel, and I also am a fantasy writer. Okay. So before we get into the discussion, please do remember to hit the like, the subscribe, add us to your favorites, share us with your friends. It helps us find an audience. It helps us, encourages us to keep going with this stuff. So we've been doing pretty well on the growth part of this as a podcast. So that's been nice. We need to get a little higher on that list.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the least you guys can do.
So, Drake, do you want to kick us off with like how this process has been for you? Because you're actually part of some other collaborations as well.
Actually, I should probably start with maybe a brag. I don't normally do this. This is kind of, and you don't know anything about this, but I mean, you do know about it, but not that I was going to say it. But since we have kind of talked about it on here, it just made me think about that when you said that. So I had my 1-year PET scan for my cancer, and it came back 100% cancer-free, clean, no nothing going on. So I am 100% officially in remission, officially by the doctor's decree. So just throwing that out there for anybody who's interested. I'm going to be around for at least another year or two. So yeah, I wanted to talk about this. I mean, this has been different. This is new. This is literally sitting down with, I mean, when you look at it from the outside, you got a male and a female, you've got an American and a Finn. Is it? I said that the other day on whatever, and then I was like, ooh, is that, I don't, do you guys, is Finn offensive? I was going to ask that before. I didn't think so. So I didn't say anything about it then, but I had said something about, and I called you a Finn. And then after I wrote it, I was like, I wonder if that's offensive.
No, we call ourselves Finns too. Finns,
right.
Finns is fine.
I thought so.
It's fine.
But you know, us Americans, we're very ignorant on anything that isn't American. So two different cultures, we're about the same age group. I mean, you know, you're younger than me, but we're in that same, I'm pretty sure you're Gen X. I don't think you're a millennial.
Yeah, I'm Gen X.
Yeah, I thought so. So still a lot of differences, you know, between the two of us. And yet this has been one of the best relationships that I've ever gotten into. I said to you before I started this, you know, like the only concern that I have with how we've been working together is we've worked together so well. I feel like you're lying to me. It's like, you know, we've had a few little things that we'll talk about, but they're all either minor stuff, or there was one that could have been major, but it was a complete misunderstanding because, and that wasn't between us physically, it was texting each other through Discord at, you know, for me, it was 12 o'clock at night. And so it was well past my bedtime. And so it was really just a text misunderstanding. It had nothing to do with whatever. So yeah, this has been awesome, but I've seen so many other people working, trying to work with another writer or whatever. And so I'm hoping that that's what we really talk about today, is we look at it from this perspective of, if you, the listener, are in a collaboration, thinking about being in a collaboration, whatever, I think here's some of the things that have really helped us be very, very successful with this collaboration. And I think the end product that we're producing is fantastic. You know, it's got both of our strengths in it with using each other to overcome our weaknesses. So the project has just benefited from every aspect of it. And so it's really, really nice.
Yeah. So from my perspective, it has been, I think, like at the beginning, I was concerned. The first month when I was churning out chapters and we hadn't yet hit on the winning formula that we have now, which is I write and you edit, which I think works really, really well for what we've got going on here. But when we were like writing our own chapters and I had reached the end of Act 1 and you had written half of your first chapter, I was like, we might have a problem here. And I think that I had better tell Drake that I should take over the writing. And I hope I'm not going to offend him. Like that was my biggest, I was like, man, I hope I'm not going to step all over his feet here. But I really think that I should just be writing the first drafts and he can come behind and edit.
So, and I don't talk about my personal life a lot. And I guess now I'm going to open up twice. Since I just mentioned the cancer stuff. Yeah. So I actually had a massive health issue before the cancer stuff, which actually took me out for longer. I mean, cancer took me out for 1.5 years or so. But my endocrine system shut down and I lost almost 5 years. I call them my waking coma years. I was still on tour, but I wrote no fiction during that time. I only wrote nonfiction, just the creative writing stuff in the classes and everything like that, because it's a different part of your brain. But I had no creativity because, you know, if you don't know the term endocrine system, it's hormones. I had no hormones, none. And, you know, one of the weird things about me, or not weird, whatever, is I'm very straight edge. I don't like drugs. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do anything. And so when your endocrine system shuts down, especially for males, I think it's more prone to males than females, because our brain literally doesn't work without testosterone. We get chronically depressed, and just our brain just shuts down. We have no drive, no focus, no desire, no get up and go, no. And not only do we not have any of those, we also have this crippling depression that makes us not care that we don't have any of those. So that was me for almost 5 years. And I would show up at conventions and I felt so sorry for my fan base, because they'd be like, when's the next creative book? And I'm like, I am absolutely working. I'm going to get it out next year. And I meant it. Like, I really did mean it. But then I got home and my brain was like, yeah, you know, I'm not going to let you do any of that. Like, I know you think you're going to do it, but I'm just not going to. And so what actually happened when we first started writing, so I'm on a happy pill and I hate it. I hate that I'm on anything. I don't like taking any medication. And so I decided, I had been working my way down because my drug dealer, because that's all he is a drug dealer. He's just a legal drug dealer. He was working me up. So I started working me down off of this happy pill. And that month I decided, you know what? I'm just going to stop taking it. And I did. And I just spiraled into, I lost that entire month. I didn't do anything for anyone, not just you, but I did nothing for no one during that month. And that is not something I can afford right now with all the projects that I have on my plate. And so not only were you pissed at me, the Realm guys were pissed at me, and my wife was pissed at me, and I'm sure my dog was pissed at me for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, that was just kind of a perfect storm moment at that time. But, and I've said this before, I love everything about my job. I love what I do as a career, except for one aspect. I hate writing the first draft. I love plotting. I love figuring things out. I love deciding where the story is going to go. I love editing. I can literally edit and add to and enhance and make things robust. Because when you said, well, you're editing, that made me sound like, wow, okay, so you're fixing a few commas here and there. I mean, like, I'm doing more than editing. I'm literally rewriting sections and stuff like that because I love doing that. But
to those who don't understand the term, I don't mean like editing, like line editing. I mean editing like plot developmental editing.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, let's just face it. I am way more feminine than you are. I am. It's just the way it is. I am all emotional and all touchy-feely and romance and all of that. And so that's really kind of what I end up spending a lot of time on, is like, let's brief up this romance. Right, exactly. So I find myself doing a lot of, oh man, this should have been really a sad scene. Let's really dig into those emotions or whatever. So like that's yeah, it's that side of it. But yeah, that was just a and then I finally realized like I got to give in and just I got to take this happy pill for the rest of my life probably because, um what is that? Serotonin. My body doesn't make it. My body doesn't make serotonin, it doesn't make testosterone, it doesn't make, it doesn't make hormones. And so I've got to get those somewhere because the human body can't operate without these hormones. And so it bothers me from a I don't like taking pills standpoint. But that month was really what made me go, screw it. I'm not, because I've been trying to get off of that since the year that I've been on, or 2 years or whatever it's been. I think it's been a couple years now. And I've been trying to worm myself off of it. But that really was the moment where I had to finally give in and go, fine, fine, fine.
So I just want to say, like, I'm not an advocate for taking pills that you don't need.
Right.
But that being said, in my family, I have a lot of that particular issue, the lack of serotonin. And my cousin committed suicide because he decided that religion was enough and he could take himself off his pills. And God would, would make him well. And it doesn't work that way. So please, and this is not just for Drake, it's for all the listeners out there, if you are on a serotonin replacement because your body doesn't produce enough, don't take yourself off the pills. It ends badly.
Yeah. So. I mean, because I just fell into a hole and I couldn't get out of it. And and you want to man up. And, I was raised in the era of, oh, you lost a hand, rub some dirt in it, you'll be fine. Like kind of that mode. And so, especially with mental stuff, and as strong mentally as I am, and as intelligent as I am, and as much time as I spend living in my brain, I am of the opinion that I should be able to mentally get through this mental issue. And that just made me realize
it's
that I
not
can't.
Mental. It's a physical issue.
It is.
It presents as a mental issue, but it's a physical issue.
Yeah.
So
and then literally within 3 days after getting back on my happy pill, I was working, I was doing all the stuff. I'm basically caught up to you, and or at least as close as I need to be, because I need to be a couple chapters behind you, but I'm right there now. So
like I always say to people, would you tell somebody with diabetics to just walk it off? No, you wouldn't, because without without their injections, they die. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's my age group, it's my generation. We don't like.
So that I think was our biggest, or at least for me, that was my biggest nervous moment. Was that it was more having the conversation, because I was like, I didn't know how you're going to take it when I say I think I should write the first draft, because you're not.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I wasn't because of an issue, not because I didn't have the desire to.
Yeah.
But when you gave me that out again, I think the biggest thing that you should really think about with partners, and this is in all partnership, me and my wife are this same way too. Me and you are this way. Me and my best friends are this way. It's always about, what do you do better than me? Why don't you do that? And what do I do better than you? I'll do that. Yeah. And instead of trying to compete with, well, I'm just as good as you on this, like, screw, no, we're all better than each other in different ways. And so I think that's why me and my wife have been married 23 years, because it's like, okay, this is what you're really good at and you don't mind doing, so you do that. And I won't do any of that. I won't compete with you. I won't try to step on your toes. If you have questions, come to me, we'll work it out together, whatever. And I think that's really what has, and we organically did that because we had the 2 years of podcasting together. And so when we went into this, sure, this is much more creative focused, absolutely. But I still think it was more of this natural. We've always kind of, from the very beginning of our relationship, we've always had this what are you good at? Like, then I don't want to compete with you on that. Just you're better at that. You do that. And then what am I good at? And let me do that.
Mm.
And so I think that is going to help people having that discussion with, and again, this is in everything. I believe this in social relationships and business relationships and whatever. Me and my business partner with Drake, you have the same thing. He's a marketer. He's a money man. Like I had to log in to do something with the finance side of it. And it was two-step verification to his phone. And for some reason it was causing me grief. So I was like, look, I'm going to change it to my number. And then as soon as I did that, I was like, all right, now change it back to your number because I don't like what I told him is I said, if you rely on me to do the taxation part of this, we're going to jail. That's just it. I'm not doing that. I would rather go to jail. I mean, I'm probably getting money back from taxes this year and it's due in a week and I still haven't even started. I could have done it 3 months ago and had it in my bank account already, but I just hate it. I hate doing that stuff. So
how long does your taxes take you, out of curiosity? Because I'll tell you why I ask. My finished taxes takes me no time. My finished taxes is like 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're poor, so it really takes me like just a few minutes to go through it because we have no money. It's
so
really
my USA taxes, and I have to interact with the IRS because I write, right? And because I have a YouTube show which is aired in the United States. So I have to fill in a W-8 Ben form. And I have to fill it in for every single entity that I get money from. So for Google, for the YouTube channel, for Apple and Google again for the books, I had to do it twice for Google, for Amazon for the books. Every single one needs their own copy of this form.
wow.
Okay? And you know what this form does? Literally all it does is it says, yes, Finland and the United States have got a tax treaty, so they don't need to pay any withholding taxes. And I'm just like, really? There can't be just one central place where I can, no.
And now after this comes out, you have to do that with Starving Writer Studio, I guess.
Yes. So I have to prepare the W-8 Ben form for Starving Writer Studio.
So yeah.
So USA taxes, in my opinion, is nuts. You're all nuts.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I would love to go to just a flat tax. The government would make more money. We would, everybody would pay exactly, you could never say, well, you're not paying your fair share. It's like everyone's paying 10%.
So yes and no. I get that 10% is changed. So we do have a progressive tax rate, right? But I don't have to worry about working that out. At the beginning of the year, I say to the government, I estimate I'm going to earn this much. And they're like, okay, here's your tax rate. And that's my tax card. And I just pay that tax for the year. If I go over that amount, then there's an additional tax that applies. If I'm under that amount, they refund me. Like it's and it just takes they just lump all of my income into one. They're like, don't worry about separating it. Just tell us what you're earning.
Right.
If I had a company, like that would be a whole different set of taxes. Like company taxation is different. But as a person, my tax is very, very simple.
Right. Yeah. And as a poor person, my taxes are very, very simple.
But yeah, so I guess that was to get us back on track of collaboration. That was my biggest moment.
Yeah.
Did you have a moment?
Well, like I said, for me, that was just like, even if I hadn't been struggling with the whole mental thing, although when we had that discussion, I was 3 or 4 days back on it. So I'd actually started working again on Magicfall when you said that. But you just gave me an out because I hate writing the first draft. So literally you were just like, hey, there's this thing you hate doing. I want to do it for you. And I was like, yes, please. Because I'll edit for days. I love editing. There's so much you can do to make a project better and pile on top of it and make it, I love that stuff. So the only time we actually had, I mean, we've gone through iterations where, like I said, I think the biggest contribution that I'm making is a lot of the emotional side of it. When I go through, I'm just like, man, I feel like you were there. You were right on the doorstep. Just take it that next step. you know, because like in the scene that I just did with so it's this female character named Myra and Lyron. You wrote the line, she got close enough to him that they're, I don't know if you said lips or if it was just their face, whatever, but I was like, and then I added like she stepped up, invading his personal bubble, and you know, so close that their lips almost grazed each other. Like I'm just adding these little romantic kind of things, and you were right there, and you were just like, no, she's just in his face, and there's this, you know, there was some tension there, you know, some sexual romantic tension, but you just kind of, you were like, nope, this is all I'm willing to do. They're right here. And then I just took it I just took what you had and I just ramped it up and made it a little more steamy and a little bit more, you know, whatever. Because I am the romantic, and like, I like that stuff. I like writing that stuff. I think, you know, that's the stuff that makes my heart go pitter patter. And so I like bringing it to the table.
I am in some ways, I guess, a cooler person, which is not to say that I don't feel emotions as deeply as anybody else. Obviously, I feel emotions, I think, about as deeply as anybody does. I'm just more.
I'm not talking about anything about actual feeling. There's a difference between.
But I write. I express
right.
my emotions in a more reserved way.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about you as a person. I don't think you're emotionally stunted.
No, I know.
I think that your writing style is emotionally stunted, but that has nothing to do with you as a human being. I hope no one listening thinks that I was even implying that. So yeah, but that's just, and again, that's something where I've really pushed myself over these last 30 years. I want, you know, like you'll have this moment where it's sad, and then I'll be like, yeah, no, I'm going to make the reader cry here. Like, you made him sad here, I'm going to make him cry. So like there was a scene where Burry was with her sister in the hospital bed, and it was, you know, it was a somber moment that you wrote, and I'm like, no, screw that. Like, they're going to cry. I want them in misery from this scene. So, and it's not quite there yet, but but that's, you know, I'm just taking it up that notch of, I see what you did, but man, let's just take it to 11. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun. I think the only thing that really happened, so anyway, to finish that up, where I was going with that was, it's a lot of, because sometimes I do go the wrong direction, because we're editing not live, we're editing remotely. So go write the chapter, and then I'll come behind it, you know, a day, 2 weeks later, whatever. And then, so when I read the moment, I take it away. So like, we just talked about one today where the scene was these two secondary characters talking, and one of them was like, well, I'll get you this thing, but I need the cash up front. And then the other guy was like, fine, I need it in 14 hours. And I need 14 hours to collect the money. And the other guy was like, fine. And so when I read that, I was like, no. He literally said he needs the cash up front. And then you were like, I'll get it to you in 14 hours. And he was like, fine. Like, and so the way I changed it was, I had the first guy say, it'll take me 14 hours to make it. And then I also changed to where the guy said, when he said, I need the cash up front, he said, I can give you cash half up front and half when I pick it up. And he's like, that'll work. So that answered that problem for me. And then he said 14 hours. And then you rejected that because you were like, no, I need guy 2 to be the one that says the time, because of this thing that you didn't have in your information. And I was like, oh, and then we just were like, okay, well then this fixes it. And so it all fixed out. And basically the way it worked out, just to finish the story for the audience, it works out where he's like, I need the cash up front. And the guy's like, fine, here's your cash up front, but you got to give it to me in 14 hours. And the guy's like, oh, okay, fine, I can get it done in that time. And so again, the problem that I had was I needed cash up front. Okay, I'll get it to you in 14 hours. Okay, that's worse for me. It's like, no, wait, what? No. So yeah, it's a lot of that where I'll fix something, but I fix it with the information I have, but you're several chapters down the road and you're like, no, you missed this piece of information. And then we just do it. I think the only one that could have
I
caused,
think just
yeah,
to stop you for there and just to put a kind of bow on that discussion, the important part of solving those problems is to keep your eye on the problem you're solving.
right,
Because Drake had a problem with the secondary character, not the one character not answering the other character's question. And when I read his edit on it, I realized that in fact the secondary character had not answered that question,
right,
and that did therefore, so that was the thing that needed addressing.
right.
So think about the problem that's being highlighted, not that it's being fixed wrong, but what is the problem that needs to be fixed.
Or worse, not that they're changing your precious words.
That's
Like,
the
you know, but it's even the same, like we talked about this today too. I cut this one line that I knew that you liked because I liked the line. So I'm like, I hate cutting this line because I know she likes this line, but it didn't work for me for a specific reason. And so I cut it. And then when we talked about it, you were like, yeah, fine, that's fine, cut. But here's the reason. I was like, well, wait a minute. Knowing that now, we can actually keep the line and add this other line, which actually fixes my problem and keeps the really cool line. Because it's not like I'm just trying to cut a line because I'm trying to cut a line. I'm trying to fix a plot issue that I see in that moment of time. And that line by itself caused the problem, not the line, but just the way it was done. And so now once we had that discussion and I understood, but you were still like, yeah, fine, whatever, we'll cut that line. So we had already fixed the problem, and yet still I'm thinking about, well, wait a minute now. We could keep that line, so make her happy because she's got that line that both of us like anyway, but I knew that it was something you really liked. And so it's also being open to that. It's not just, okay, I win, I've now forced you to fix something. It's just there. Here's the problem. How are we going to fix this problem? What's a solution to fix this problem? I don't care, whose idea it is. But we're all blind in our own writing. That's why, I always say so much you've got to be in a writer's group, because you'll see problems in other people's writings way easier than you see it in your own. Even at my level, I mean, we talked about the time where, how many times have I bitched about if you do a flashback on page 1, you've started in the wrong spot, and then you're like, dude, on your first page, you started with a flashback. And I didn't see it because you don't see. It is way harder to see issues in your own writing because of how close you are to it. And so, but it's not about my way or your way. It's about, okay, great. Here's the problem that I see, and here's my solution to fix it. And sometimes it's like, oh, that's a really good solution, let's use that. Sometimes it's you know what, that actually causes me a problem in this other thing. And then it's like, well, here's the solution that I think would fix your problem, but also still keep where I'm trying to go. And then sometimes that's like, yes, great, let's do that. Other times it might take a little discussion of neither one of these are right. So let's talk about it and focus on what the actual problem is, and then fix the problem. And then at the end of the day, the story is just better for any of those avenues. But again, it has to do with not letting artistic pride get in the way. And we've never had that. And I just find that so beautiful. And just our podcast has always been this way. And, you always hear like the TV shows, the talk shows or whatever, where they're like this on camera, and then you hear the behind the scenes, they freaking hate each other. Like they won't even look at each other when the camera's off. And then when the camera's on, they're all like, hey, you're my best friend. That's just weird to me. I wouldn't want to work in a toxic environment like that. No. I guess if they're paying me $4 million a year, I would do it, but but we ain't getting paid $4 million a year for this. So yeah, and that's just, I think that's just been the way we've been doing it across the board. And the cool thing is the vast majority of that happens in the Word document in the comment section. Like it's not even, we don't even have to get together face to face. It's, I do an edit, and always have track changes on. So I'm never just doing destructive edits. It's always, here's an option. And then, the rule is always, you cannot accept your own edits, and you cannot close your comments. So you can't, check them off as closed. So that's been our rule. And so when she makes an edit, I'm the one that has to approve the edit. And then that way we both know we're on the same page. And then same thing with a comment. If I don't have an answer, like if you've said a comment, I'm like, yeah, there's no reason for me to even answer that. I agree 100%. I just close it out and we're done. We all know that we're all on the same page. So I think that's worked out really well too for us. Is just
And I think establishing, because we didn't have those rules like right at the start, and then we spoke about it and we're like, okay, this is our rules of engagement, and it's just been great, easy sailing since then.
Well, and even when we didn't have it at the very, very beginning, we were still kind of doing it that way. But yeah, we both kind of at the same time said, let's make sure that we're both, it seems like we're both doing this, but let's have that conversation. And I think that's the other thing is you have to have conversations.
Yes.
If you're in a relationship with someone, you have to talk to them.
Right at the beginning, when we switched to this model, you would leave comments in the text like,
yeah,
this line should change. And I looked at those lines once or twice and I was like, do you think you're an editor here?
Right.
Write it, bitch.
Yeah. So that was something we also had to work out. So what she's talking about is, you know, since she was doing the first draft, I was still in that mindset of trying, you know, when I'm working for a private client or something like that, it's their words. I can give suggestions, but it really is just that. So it's taken me a few chapters to get to the point where I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to write it. It's just mine. This is mine. I wrote this first. Is kind of the way I look at it now. And so I just rewrite it right over top of it as if I'm the only soul that is being crushed by me changing this. And so, and that's taken me a little while. And I'm still a little gun shy for it because I respect you and don't want you to feel like I'm just running roughshod over you, but I know you don't, but I'm just saying it's a hard thing to get over. You know.
So, I mean, the discussion we've had about that, and I guess the discussion that's here of relevant to our podcast listeners is, I told Drake, like, he must just write the lines, just write in the text with track changes on. If I don't like the changes, believe me, I'll reject them. Like, I have no shyness.
And actually, we should correct that. You don't reject them.
Yeah.
You just make a comment on them and go, you don't accept them is really what it is. So the change is still there. Your original is there. My change is there. And we leave it there until we either have the discussion through comments or there's been a couple times where it's like, I mean, because we talk at least once a week, if not twice a week. So it's not like we're going, oh, we have to hold this until we're face to face because we don't want to step on each other's toes. It's more like we're talking tomorrow anyway. So I'm just not even going to answer this. We'll talk about it in the morning. It'll be fine. And so it's just worked out like that where we go back and forth. So it's not that she's rejecting me or anything like that, because that would also cause grief. Because then what did I write? What was it? So if you are working with someone else, it's about, okay, so you've put your thing in there, my thing is in there. Neither one of us are happy. So let's now take this discussion further. And like I said, for us, 90 and really probably more than that, it's just that we talk so often. So we've caught some of them just physically, but most of them have been handled in the comments. It's like, I don't like your solution to this, and here's why. And because that's the big thing. It's always both of us believe in that. It's not just I don't like this. It's here's why this doesn't work for me. Because then the other person can go, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. So knowing that now, okay, what about this now? And it really does come down to that. It's about just listening to the other person and seeing, making sure, because the perspective is the only perspective that matters is the stories. And so my opinion doesn't matter. And I feel like Marie feels like the same way, that her opinion doesn't matter. It's just what's going to be the best for the story? How is that going to work out? And I think that's what's made this. And I think the end product is, benefiting drastically from all this.
I think that our end product is going to be, you're not going to be able to look at our end product and be like, Drake wrote this portion or Marie wrote that portion, because it is such a fused end product.
Yeah.
That I think that it's actually going to be impossible to tell which part is which. It's just going to be slightly different from our solo writing. Like it's going to be more emotional. It's going to be deeper world building, on your side and so on.
Because that is something that I still do. When I do rewrite something, I will write, like, I'll be like, blah, 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 name of monster in parentheses. And then I'll keep writing because I'm like, I don't want to. You have a naming convention, you have an idea of the world and all that. So why would I even, again, that's your strength. It's about doing that. Or I think I wrote something like color of something. I don't remember what it was, but I didn't even want to think about
you asked for a favorite dish as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I think Ghost said something like, I hear that Lyron's favorite dish in parentheses is really good at place where dish is sold. And the final line is whatever it is. It just reads the way it should read. So I wrote it exactly like it should be written. I just bracketed out the thing I don't want to create. So yeah, that's worked out really well too. And then I do add, I guess the other thing I'm adding to is the male humor of Ghost. You have some of it in there, but I mean, I was raised on the buddy constantly digging at each other. That's just a male. That's the way we live our lives, is constantly digging at each other. You can't be friends with another male unless you're constantly cutting them down. Like that's kind of, there's two male relationships. There is, I'm seriously trying to hurt you and cut you down, or I'm playfully trying to hurt you and cut you down. Like, and that distinguishes between we're enemies and we're friends. Dudes are weird.
Oh, well, so I guess the one place where we have had what could have been a serious misunderstanding was over a thing that you edited where I felt like you gender flipped a character, and I was like, no, you're not gender flipping this character.
Yeah, that was funny because what I got on my side was, hey, you know that scene where there was a dude, a girl, and a dude? How dare you turn the girl into a dude? And I'm like, what? There's a dude, a girl, and a dude. I didn't do anything to him. What I didn't realize it was a dude and a girl. So I detached in my mind in that scene the name and the way it was described. I added a third person, and it was a male name. It was a male sounding name to me. So to me, there were three people in the scene. And so I didn't gender flip anybody. I just split the girl into a girl and a boy. So there was her sex, which was, I just figured she wasn't named. And then there was the dude that was named this. And so, yeah. And once we figured out that it was like, oh, yeah, no, I didn't gender flip anybody. I just added a character that wasn't there.
But it does bring me to something that I do want to talk about in a more general sense.
Yeah.
Which is, if you, like, not all societies are gender equal. For example, in Sandwell Chronicles, I do not have a gender equal society. So there you will see more men in the background as background characters than you will see women, because it is not a gender equal society.
Right. And a lot of fantasy is that way. And it's weird to me that people try to force, because I think it lends an inauthenticity to it.
It depends, to me, like it depends on how widespread your magic is. If your magic is widespread, like my magic in Kisangi continent is far more widespread than it is in the Empire. So Kisangi is naturally more gender equal because magic is a great equalizer, right? But if your magic is not widespread and it's not an equalizer, then it is highly unlikely that post an agricultural revolution, you would have a gender equal society.
Yeah.
There would need to be a reason for it, in my opinion. But regardless, I don't mind people...
As much as our world thinks it should be regardless, it still doesn't. It's not authentic.
It's fine. But I do also want to say in defense of those worlds, like, if you have dragons in your world, asking me to swallow a gender equal society is not the biggest thing you're asking me to swallow.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I'm fine. Like, and this is the thing. I am 100% fine with you saying my society, whether it's medieval, whatever it is gender equal. It's the same as the discussion we've had about rape. Neither of us include rape in our books. Why? Maybe it is authentic to include it, but we don't want to write it.
Right.
So these authors maybe want to write a gender equal society, and they're like, just my society is gender equal, swallow it, reader. And that is fine. No problem with that at all. What I have a problem with is when the words coming out of your character's mouth is, this is a gender equal society. Yeah? But every background character that I encounter, every tertiary character and most secondary characters, all of them are male.
Yeah.
And this happens because a lot of us instinctually write that way because it's how we grew up. Like I grew up in a much more male-dominated world than we're in now, because I grew up in the 80s, right? So I have an instinctual kind of more male, you see more men. Yeah. And so you write that way. So I actually go back and edit in to include more women in the background doing background jobs, especially in Magicfall, which is a gender equal society. And that's what led to this discussion. And I think that this is an important lesson for you to take away is if you have a gender equal society, you might need to go back and check that you actually have women doing things like getting drunk, having fights, sitting on a park bench, like women in the background doing background things,
right,
in roughly the same proportion as men in the background doing doing things in the background. Because if you don't, you say it's an equal society, but it's not.
So you used a really good example when we were just talking about this podcast before we started recording it, which I've seen millions of times, and this might resonate with a bunch of people because it resonated with me tremendously, where you said it's like having an evil villain character that the characters say, oh, he's really evil and scary, but in the writing, he's not. He always loses. He's always an imbecile. He's always like, that's the same thing. If you want to build the perception, you build the perception. Telling me what it is without showing it to me is just not, it doesn't do anything.
Your characters can say, oh, he is so scary and I am so frightened and I need to plan for this. But when it comes to the fight, they never get injured. It's like, yeah, but
Well, that's because their plan was so awesome.
Yeah, no, not every time. Characters need to lose.
Right.
And that to me is the thing that I have a problem with, is when the people are saying one thing, the dialogue is telling me one thing, but what the story is showing me is an incompetent villain who can't organize their way out of a paper bag, who continuously loses. And that just, and if the problem is that your villain is so powerful that they touch your character and the character dies, then kill a secondary character. Show me something.
Well, not just that, because that needs to happen definitely, but also don't cheat. I mean, I've told this story before where I had the little dragon statue and the little elf statue when I was writing a story for Sony, where this elf had to kill this dragon on the battlefield. And so I'm literally sitting here just playing with my little dolls going, okay, how is this going to work? So I try to live by make the situation unsurvivable and stick by that, and then force yourself to have to really be creative to have the character actually survive the unsurvivable thing. Like, don't cheat. Don't change the unsurvivable thing to, well, I mean, that's like, I'm stuttering because I don't want to, this is probably going to get me into trouble, but Ex Machina, the big cartoon from Critical Role, I can't stand. I think it's horribly written. And the biggest thing that I have a problem with it is every single episode, and I only watched the first, I don't know, maybe the first season, so I don't know if they've fixed this or not, but every episode in the first, whatever I watched, 5, 8, 10 episodes, was everyone who goes up against this monster dies and nothing can touch it, and it's the absolute thing. And then when they get there, they don't struggle at all. They just like flick it in the nose and it's dead. There's no overcome. in every episode has been that way, or was that way. I stopped watching it because I was like, but like, it's so like, what are you doing? And it's that same thing. It's that if you're gonna dig for it, then dig for it. Put them in an unsurvivable situation. They have to survive. They're your main character. But make them work for it. Make them have to actually survive it. Don't just have them, what's that one guy who does the pitch sessions where he's like, yeah, no,
easy.
super easy,
Barely an
barely
inconvenience.
like, don't do that. Because then that guy's just going to make a video about you. Although if you get big enough, that guy's making videos out of you, you're probably doing okay. He's never made a video out of me. So, whatever. But I'm just saying, I don't like put them in it and make them actually have to do it. And if you're just telling me that it's an unsurvivable thing and then the character skates through without any harm, there's no drama there. I didn't earn anything. And so therefore it's not satisfying to me as the reader. So yeah, that's a big thing.
Yes. And to me that thing with the gender equality feels the same way, right? I'm like, but if you're saying that your society is gender equal, then there must also be,
Yeah.
It must show in background characters.
So I'm trying to get to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock. And that night I was still awake at midnight. And I got a Discord from you. I mean, normally I just don't answer them because I'm asleep, but I got a Discord from you that was obviously heated. It was you've now pissed me off and you've done this thing. And I'm looking at going, what? I didn't even do that. What do you? So it was but it wasn't, it was just a misunderstanding.
No, I know. And I mean, we talked it out and it was fine, but it is like, and I guess that is one of the things.
Actually, the funny thing is, actually, here's the funny thing. A comma caused that problem. Yes. And not a misused comma, because you used the comma correctly and I didn't read it as a comma. It was literally one comma, because when my wife looked at it, she was like, well, there's a comma there that obviously shows that the dude's name that you think is the dude's name is the chick's name. And I was like, oh yeah. But my brain just locked in on the fact that that's a dude's name. I mean, you might as well have just said, Bob, because I was like, I just didn't. And so you had the comma in the right spot. It's just, and so I think I was like, I want to reorganize this sentence a little bit because it just made me feel better. And it connected a little stronger. And then that was it. But yeah, it was literally that entire mistake was caused because I didn't see a comma that was there. That's how powerful commas are. That's all I'm saying.
And you should be aware of them. But I guess like what it also highlighted is that you should know where your partner's bunion toes are. Like I have a bunion toe with people saying one thing and showing another, and it manifests particularly in the gender equality thing because I'm aware of it because I'm a woman.
Right.
And I'm a woman who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, like where it was still, like a lot of it was still a battle. Especially, I mean, when I went to university and studied computer science, I was one of 3 women in the class.
Yeah.
And if you want to know how many jokes computer science men can tell about women when there are 3 of them in the class, the answer is more than you ever want to hear. Like, so I do have, bunions on my toes there.
Now, I will go back to what I said. Men have 2 types of friends, or they pick on people 2 ways. So you want gender equality, then we pick on our friends pretty ruthlessly. Yeah. So if you want us to treat you like one of the dudes, we're going to pick on you relentlessly because that's how we operate. That's the only way we know. Like I said, dudes is weird. We just are weird. It's just the way it is. So welcome to equality. Because that's just banter.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. You can't say I want to be equal and you then not be treated like one of the dudes.
I agree with
they were probably being mean. I get that.
Yeah, I agree with banter. Some of the jokes
Right.
were never funny.
Well, I mean,
The amount of times that I have heard the joke of what do you say to a woman with a blue eye?
mm,
Nothing, you've already spoken. That joke is
right.
not funny.
No,
It's
but
never funny.
that's right. That's
Yeah,
but that's a
that's not a joke. It's
right.
yeah,
Yes, and I know the
it's
joke you're talking about.
yeah,
Um, well, that's an actual misogynist
yeah,
joke.
yeah,
And that's not usually the banter,
yeah.
what we
That's
call
not banter.
locker room
No,
banter. So yeah, no, like I said, some of the jokes were probably just people being mean because
yeah.
people are mean. And that's, I was going to say men are mean, but it's really just people are
Yeah,
mean.
people are
Men
mean.
and
Okay,
women can just be
women can be hella mean. Don't
right.
don't don't
Yeah,
make a
that's why I
mistake
didn't
here.
say what I was going to say. I changed it
Yeah,
to people.
yeah.
Um,
And I would, by the way, I would draw the same kind of. I have the same problem if you're telling me equality exists and all I see are women. I'm like, yeah,
mhm,
no, because
right.
now I'm not seeing equality. I'm seeing gender dominance the other way. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
equality means it should be a roughly 50% split
Because in a
of
modern day society, there really is the
yeah,
sexes. There's not a lot of, there's a few little things here and there that
yeah.
one is better at than the other. But for the most part, I mean, in an office environment, it doesn't matter what's between your legs.
Yeah, exactly. In an office environment, it's generally the same. And these days, with all the mechanical help we have,
Yeah,
like it is a rare job that
right,
really needs a man's strength exclusively because our
right,
tech makes up for
right.
the lack of upper body strength
Yeah,
and all the rest of that.
yeah,
So, I mean,
100%.
that wouldn't apply 100 years ago, obviously, but we have replaced a lot of muscle power with machine power.
Yep. And we've also just gotten a lot of like, just those jobs just don't even exist anymore. All right. So what else? What about collaboration? I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people, and I am the same way. I'm always concerned when I'm getting involved in on a collaboratory relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes down to be honest, be open, find people who only care about the end product's ego, and there is no other egos in the project, but the project. The project has its ego and it wants to be great.
Mm.
The rest of us are just here, we're just monkeys with wrenches. We're just building something, and it doesn't matter. I mean, I struggle with, especially in the realm, I struggle with whose ideas they were. I mean, like one of the funniest times that ever
Exactly.
happened, me and this one author got into it and we were seriously arguing about this thing. I was like, no, we're cutting this. And he was like, no, we're absolutely keeping this. And this is why. And I'm like, no, this is why. And we're really, and about 2 or 3 minutes into the argument, I stopped and I went, do you realize that this was an idea that I came up with originally? So basically, I was fighting to cut something that I had come up with, and he was fighting to keep something I had come up with, because we just forget who, we don't care. We don't care where the
Yeah.
ideas came from.
I'll tell
So
you where you have a bunion that you don't like getting stepped on. You don't like gray heroes.
no,
You have a real bunion there. You don't want the heroes to do anything that's morally gray. And I'm like, but they could just do this little, and you're like, no, I don't like that. I'm like, okay.
um, so not exactly. I know why you're saying that, but not exactly. I do have a weird, I don't want to use the word fetish, but there's no, I mean, that's just a good
You
word
have a
for it.
bunion. Like you don't like people stepping on your toe there.
But I like one character to truly be good. And I've attached that, unfortunately, to Lyron. So Lyron is an actual good person in my mind. And so it is hard for me. I think you might be talking about the line that I kind of misread, because you did this one line with Burry that was vague,
Mhm.
and it could be interpreted many different ways. But the way I interpret it was, she was basically saying she would sell her body for money,
Mm.
even though you were like, well, that's not exactly what I meant by that. But I can see, I mean, it was written in a way that it could be taken that way.
Mm.
But that's where my mind went. I was like, I don't like that. I don't want her to be that type of character. And so it wasn't, I don't mind that she's not shiny and clean and all that. I just don't want her to be 16 years old and going, well, I can always, sell sex for money and just be kind of cavalier about it. Like that's what rubbed me wrong. I just didn't want, that's not the character that I would like to follow with this. But Burry is definitely gray.
No,
I know she's actually red, but
Burry's not gray.
well, but she's
Lyron
more,
is actually more gray because Lyron's got a racist streak running through him.
but he doesn't, not on purpose.
That's
He
his
doesn't know.
weakness.
He does, but he doesn't see it. And
No,
I'm fine
no.
with that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, Burry is actually a lot less gray in a way. She is the once or twice that I've hinted towards grayness, you've gone like, no, we can't go there.
Well, so
there.
I mean, like I said, there was that the only time I remember is that one because I took the line you wrote as her saying that she would, just basically whore herself out, and that really rubbed me wrong. But there's been times. So here's while I'll say no, or go against you on that. She has said that she would be willing to steal if she got down to it. And I think she is that type of character. I think she lives in a world where, I mean, you have to do whatever you have to do to survive. And that's what I see as gray, because you are taking from someone else. And I don't see Laron ever doing that. I don't see Laron ever, the fact that he is a little racist, but he doesn't realize that it's racism. I mean, I don't fault him, but he doesn't, can you blame him for being a sinner if he doesn't even know the sin exists? Is kind of my thing.
Yeah.
So I don't see that as being gray. I see that as being because once I know his journey. So once he realizes that it's a sin, he will immediately curve to work on fixing it. And that's, I think, a good person. That's why I still don't see that as a morally gray thing for Laron, but I do see it as morally, because Burry knows that if she steals, she is taking from someone else that may need it just as much as she does, but she doesn't care because she's going to die without it or whatever. And I don't blame her for that. That's perfectly fine because of the situation that she's in. So that's what I mean by I see Burry as more morally gray because she'll willingly do something that's wrong. Only because she's forced to, absolutely, but she's willing to do it. Whereas I don't think Laron, I think if you put him in a situation where he is forced, because we don't have that anywhere in the plotting, where he's literally forced to make a hard, bad decision that's going to hurt someone else. Everything through the plotting, and maybe we didn't talk about this and I just did it for whatever reason, but I do see him as being, but in every one of my stories, I always, for whatever reason, I have one person that just...
You did it because you attached to him as your character.
I did.
And you have a love for the paladin, which is, it's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with it.
It is the only thing I fantasy fulfill. I preach against fantasy fulfilling in your stories, but, in the realm, I'm running Latimus, and he is that person. A matter of fact, 20 books, he doesn't lie at all. And the overcome of the entire series is him lying for the very first time, because it is that much of a major deal for him.
See, whereas, if I look at Sangwheel, I don't think I have a non-gray character there.
Right.
I think they're
I don't
all
think you do.
shades of gray. There are some of them that are closer to black than gray,
right?
But there is not a single
But I have characters like that too. I usually only have one character in every story because, like, Arderi in the Genesis Saga is that character. He's not going to do anything ever that's going to hurt someone else, even if it means he has to sacrifice himself. He's not going to do it, and that's. You are right. I was supposed to write Laron from start to finish. And so since I only have the one character, he kind of became my, as you say, paladin.
Yeah.
Because I am a romantic. And why are we doing fantasy but to show the best of humanity? And so I don't mind the shades of gray, and I've got tons of characters and I do all sorts of things like that. But I just feel like part of what I want to do as a storyteller is I want to be better. I want to show something better than the way you live your life, better than the way I live my life, you know? And I think that's important for me as a storyteller to kind of give that role model through this fictitious story that people can go, man, you know, I wish that I don't think I would make that decision if I was in that situation, because I am definitely more gray. We talked about it earlier. We were talking about what would you do for your kids, and I was like, you know, I don't ever want to hurt a human being, but I will kill a fool that is threatening my child, like without even hesitation. But
I think that the interesting thing is, like, I agree with you about, you know, themes and showing people things and so on. I've had fans contact me and say herself is an inspiring character to them, which I can see, but
absolutely.
she is a dark hero to take an inspiration from. You have to be in a reasonably dark place in your life to look at a character like herself and be like, it's something that shows me something to aspire to. I'm like, okay. I'm glad.
Well, with you saying that, I don't think Burry is not a character that you can aspire to. She has lived the life that she's lived that we all understand. Most of us are not in the 1%. You know, we're writing two characters, one in the 1% and one in the not even in the top 10% of the 99%.
Yeah.
So, you know, we understand those characters because most of us live way closer to the Burry character than we ever will live toward the Lyron character. And that's why, like, with him being a little racist and being a little classist and all that, he just doesn't realize yet. I mean, that's what his journey is about, his journey going down the planet and dealing with Burry. But you're right, I have always had one character that is that character that just won't make a conscious decision to put someone else out. So, but it's just one character. It's not all my characters. Got a lot of shades of gray and evil characters and all of that.
Yeah, even with the thing with like, I don't want her to be this. I'm like, okay, it's fine.
It was just
like
one line. I didn't want her to be a whore. That's it.
I'll turn it back. I'll dial it back.
One thing. It was the one thing.
But I do like, and that, I mean, it's as I say, like, to me it's not a Bunyan. I just naturally write in a somewhat grayer, you know, in a somewhat grayer setting. Like it and there's nothing, like, I'm not a grimdark writer either. It's not like we're marrying grimdark with, you know,
right.
like it's not to that extreme. It's just that I do write a little grayer, you write a little lighter, and it's just,
well, the funny thing is, I don't think anybody who's read me that just heard you say that is going to agree with you, because I write such dark, tragic, but I think it's because I push the emotion so heavy.
Yes, but your characters make what I would call more pure choices. Like, I will have my characters make choices that are dubious, not as dubious as a grimdark author, but dubious.
Right. I'll agree with that.
Louis has made dubious choices. Naira is a politician. She has made some dubious choices, you know.
Right.
And I think that you know, and that is my style of writing, and that's fine, you know. But and I don't mind dialing it back for the story, because it's not a big deal to me.
Well, it's also not that type of story. It is definitely more of a YA. This is more of YA than either of us write.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So, but that to me was an interesting, like, it was interesting to me to realize. I was like,
yeah, no, you're probably, because I was actually thinking about, like, just going through Genesis, you know, the 5 main characters in it. Well, Clytus will cut a fool to survive one more day.
But what do you do with Clytus? You kill him.
Hey, come on now, spoiler. Spoilers. But yeah, Klain is constantly, even though he's a monster dude, he's still very honorable. I mean, if I'm going to follow a hero, then I want to follow a hero. and I want them to be better than me. And so, yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's a Bunyan, but I definitely agree. I do like my characters to try and do the right thing. I mean, otherwise, why am I following them? I've got a few stories where it's like there's the path of rebirth, where the dude is just evil incarnate. I mean, just the whole way through. Like there's a scene where he's working for his boss, and he goes to the city and he's got to meet with these informants, but he doesn't like his boss much. So after he gets the information from the informants, and it's a father and son, he slits their throat. Not because he wants to kill them for like anything to save him. It's just that it's really hard to get informants in this town for his boss. And it's going to cause his boss a lot of grief to have to get a new informants after he kills these two. So he literally just kills the father and son, and the son's like 14, I think, or something like that. So, and he doesn't even hesitate. He's just like, and I'm going to do it because it's fun. It's fun to me to put the burr in my boss's saddle. And so I don't care. So I can write that.
Yeah.
But that's a story also that is about a villain.
But you don't like doing it in your actual main stories. You want reasonably pure heroes.
I do. I'll admit that. I mean, I do. I hate to admit it. I'm begrudgingly admitting it because it makes me feel like I'm following a pattern. But I do. I like more feel good stories. I like more. That's the type of writer I am. I'm definitely not a grim dark writer, even though my emotions and violence and everything else are at the level of grim dark. Maybe that. You know what? This is an interesting conversation. I had no idea we were going to go this path. But one of the things that I've always been amazed is how the vast majority, 70-75% of my fan base is female. And I've always just chalked it up to, well, 75% of all people who buy books are female. I write some pretty dark stuff, but maybe it's because I think you might have hit on why I do. And it's not that men don't read me. The women who read me just really like the way, and it's probably because the characters are a little more pure in this dark world that they're in. So maybe that's the reason why I have so many female fans, because I'm
definitely. You write romance into your books.
Huh?
You write romance into your books.
I do write romance in my books.
I would never have picked on a romance between the two POV characters. I would probably never have setting up a triangle. Like it.
Yeah.
I have to really, really think about whether I have a plot reason for a romance, because it does not occur to me to write it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's obvious. Which is why I come through and do it.
So I think I think that's why women also enjoy reading, because a lot of women enjoy reading something that has some romance in it.
And I have romance in everything I do.
Yeah.
Because it's natural to me. It's natural. Like in that scene with that kid, the Lyron and Myra, they're both 16. They're both in her room by themselves. And even though it's not a sexually charged scene, that moment does, because there's a reason for it. There's something that happens that makes Myra go, ooh, I had no interest in you at all until this moment. And now, I don't know, I'm kind of hot for you now. And Lyron is a 16-year-old boy. So when she steps up that close to him, he's excited. But I even up the line of Ghost, because you had something about, it was a great line. You had something about, remember I'm in here too, when he's thinking about this, and you're implying that he's thinking about doing to Myra after they leave. And I upped it up to, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something, and he repeated the word. Ghost repeats the word, and he said, if I had eyes, I would wash them out with bleach. Implying that Lyron was imagining, because Ghost is in his head, for those who don't know. And so the 16-year-old boy is imagining what he wants to have happen between him and this very good looking girl that he was just with. And so I just took it up a notch to, if I had eyes, I would wash them out with bleach.
Yeah. But yeah, so you know what I mean? Like, and that's just little stylistic differences. But
Yeah.
again, like to me, it's not a big deal, right?
No, I think
mean,
it's,
you
and I
know,
think it's each one of us allowing the other
yeah,
to do what they're really good at, and then
exactly.
just improving on that.
Yeah.
Because the funny thing is almost everything. There's been a couple times, like there was the last scene with Burry and her sister in the hospital room that I literally changed the tone of it and did quite a bit. Matter of fact, I even think, is that the one where I actually just cut the last several paragraphs, moved them down, and rewrote the entire thing? There was one section where I did.
No. That was in the scene with Tyrone. The scene with Tyrone that you rewrote a huge section of it.
Okay,
The
whatever.
hospital scene you edited.
Right.
Yeah.
So most of it, that's the thing. Most of it, you have the building, but like I'm like, why didn't she take it to? You're literally there. You're on the doorstep. Step through. And so most of the time, my editing is just stepping through the door that you have built. You know, it's right there. That's been pretty much most of it. Which is awesome for me because then the building blocks, like, I don't know if I would have thought about that either between Laron and Myra in the scene that we've been talking about, but you have the line where she gets up and, like I said, you either have their faces were close together, or I think you might even mention lips or something like that, and it made me go.
I think I said something like her breath tickled along his jaw, or something like that. Yeah,
something. But it made me go, why would she do that? Because for me, it's always about motivation. I'm always motivated. Even my tertiary characters, and that's what she is. And I was like, oh, if he was to say this instead, it would, because there was a, not only get anything away, but there's something that she is. And by having him just say this one line makes her, go weak in the knees and see him as, before that line, she sees him as a cardboard box. And after that line, she sees him as, oh, maybe there is a chance for a, romantic thing between us. Maybe I am kind of interested in you more than a cardboard box. And so I just took that scene and I just, ramped it up and ramped his, because he's 16 and now this girl is in his face and she's way more aggressive than he is. And he's now all fluttering and stuttering and, he can't figure out what to say next. And she's all like, And so I just took it to that next level and it works beautifully, I think. And so, the building blocks were there for the most part. So it's been a joy. That's all I can say.
For me as well. Like I enjoy the first draft process. I enjoy figuring things out. It's also why I pants, because I enjoy the process of writing that first draft and discovering the character. I am less fond of the editing process. I do it because it's part of the job. So,
this has made me completely reevaluate how I've been picking on James Patterson all these years. Because I could see myself becoming the James Patterson of fantasy, where I come up with a story, I give it to a writer who's good enough to get it up to a level that I can edit the crap out of, and then come behind him, edit it, and put it out. Now, the difference is he puts it out as his book, which I think is kind of, again, I try to do the right thing, and I'm not going to let somebody ghostwrite under me and just say, oh, yeah, no, I wrote all of that. Like, that's pretty crappy. But this has been so nice, and it does the one thing that I don't want to do, which is that stupid first draft. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I could become the James Patterson of fantasy if I don't watch out. I kind of am, because we have this 3 books and then the 20 books of the magic, or the although I am writing 40% of the realm, unfortunately. I'd love to talk them into writing the whole thing. Wonder if I can do that. Like, it really works well for Marie. You guys just need to write it for me.
I think it depends. Like, it really works well with Magicfall because the world conceptually is mine. So me writing it means that you don't have to worry about things. Like, I spent nearly a week building the outside world. Yeah. And I'll probably do a full video on this at some point on my YouTube channel, because wow. Yeah. Did it take me a while to figure out the outside world. The outside world was Wow.
And see, this is the thing I got to compliment you on. Yours is actually scientifically accurate. I
Yes.
mean, one of the reasons why I like writing fantasy is I can just make the crap up. If I want a thing to float in the air, if I want a plant to float in the air, I just say it floats in the air. Like you're like, okay, here's why it actually floats. Here's the science behind it and how it would work. And it's like, yeah, that's way too much for me. I'm just gonna make that stuff up.
So I do that with my fantasy as well, but with my fantasy, I tend to have like, okay, so this is the magical principle. This is how the thing uses the magic. This is like Masaroxi used the magic in this way. Yanari used the magic in this way. Like I have these things. The problem with this world is not our world. It's not analogous to our world. It's not based on our world. It's based on its own science rules.
Right.
I actually, now that I've developed this whole world, I'm like, I don't even have to call this science fantasy. I could call this science fiction, hand on my heart. Because
Yeah.
this thing is science fiction. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I can call myself a science fiction author at this point. Like the science, I wouldn't say the science is hard. It's not hard,
No.
hard, hard.
No.
But
Because
it's there.
we have the whole Jaren stuff,
But
but even that, I
Jiren's
know
got
I
a
don't want
scientific. Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
get into that. That's a little too much spoilers. But
But like the amount of reading up I had to do on supersymmetry in order to
yeah.
build the radiation. And then I went and like did a whole evolutionary paths of like, okay, so how would this
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I would never do that. Just like I won't pay my water bill if I have to do it manually. I'm not going to create all this stuff that you created.
So that was a chunk of work. And I think that's why it really works for me to do the first draft, is because I know the world
So
and
much
hence
better.
can describe it.
Yeah, so much better than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been a dream, and hopefully the audience is going to really, really benefit from this, and really, and I know the beta readers have been loving it and all of that,
Mm.
but yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to get it out to everybody. Really excited to have you here for Comic-Con. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, I think we've
Remember
gone way over.
those of our listeners who are in Vegas around the 2 weeks around Comic-Con, I'll be in Vegas, and then at Comic-Con we'll both be in San Diego.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, I
reach
mean,
out.
pretty much everyone in Vegas. I don't know if there's very many fans. Every once in a while it happens, but I know because I do so much local stuff around Vegas. I do know most of my fans that live here or near me, or I've met them or whatever. But yeah, if there is somebody that has never met me or whatever that's in Vegas, if enough people reach out, maybe we can do something. Maybe we have a night where we meet at a restaurant and just have a thing. And then obviously anyone going to Comic-Con, we're going to be there. We're going to have booths and everything like that. I actually have 2 booths this year at Comic-Con. So Marie's going to be at one and I'm going to be at the other, and they're right next to each other. So
You'll be able to find us and buy books and talk and sign and whatever you want to do.
Yep. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And I guess that is a good place to end this episode on collaborating with another writer. I hope that you found value in it, and we will see you soon for another one.
Bye.